Lloyd Cole and the Commotions from the album Rattlesnakes from 1984 went to number 13 in the album chart. The Manic Street Preachers, our guests in the studio, James Shawn and Nicky Wire. Nicky Wire played that for you because I found that in a list, and it must have been from 2 or 3 years ago, of your favourite albums, Rattlesnakes. Is it still in your top 10 albums?
Just lifted my spirits as I walked in the studio, just hearing it.
Yeah.
Just transports me back to that glorious period of just staying in my bedroom and over and over and over listening to it.
But what I thought was interesting as well was you saying just when you looked at the sleeve suggested a story because it's just that it's the door which is almost just slightly ajar where you're thinking what's behind the door.
Yeah, it's a brilliant cover. It really is mysterious. It's just opened, and the record just opens you to a different world, you know, the lyrics especially. You're trying to find out where all those references met.
Do you have record collections at home? Do you have big record collections?
Yeah, I think we all do, yeah. I mean, there was a period when I was younger, myself and Sean sold off quite a lot of vinyl to buy some instruments.
Right.
And you slowly try to buy them back. But all got pretty big collections, I think.
We had to do a pay-to-play gig in Bristol Beer Keller, and we sold a lot of our best records.
Really?
My Bloody Valentine, you know, with the male singer at the start. Really good stuff.
Oh, what, that Sunny Sunday Smile?
Yeah, Lovely Sweet Darlene.
Oh.
Which is our favourite era of My Bloody Valentine.
The slightly twee era.
Yeah. No, but he was basssaw guitar. It was tough.
Yeah, it was great. Do you know what? I saw them twice on tour. They were supporting the Soup Dragons at that.
Yeah, we saw them on that tour.
Did you?
Yeah, it was Treforest Polytechnic.
Was it?
It's an amazing gig.
Yeah.
It was really heavy, actually. It was mega.
Because their drummer, even then, was amazing. So amazing that at Colchester, they did Essex University, and he was on a drum riser and was hitting his drum so hard that he eventually lost balance, fell over backwards and went through the fire curtain until the band carried on playing until they thought, hang on a second, they all look round and he's not, they're just pulling himself up on the drum riser.
Was that Hang 10? Is it Hang 10 Soup Dragons?
Yeah, it was.
It's that era.
It was that. Yeah, it was very much.
Good era of Soup Dragons as well.
You were saying in this piece about trying to get your kids into something like Lloyd Cole, but at the time they were no success. Anyone? No success passing on your music.
Well, mine's 2 and 6, so it's going to to be a bit of a hard sell at that point. You know, getting past Moshy Monsters is going to be hard for me.
Never too soon. Never too early. Never too early. Have you had any successes?
Well, every time I go back home when I'm away, like the whole Sonic Youth section has disappeared into my daughter's room.
Oh, really?
I see a big hole in my CD collection. What's going on there?
It was Smith's last time, wasn't it?
Yeah, Smith's. So she's following in that miserable wire.
We'll have some new records at 6 o'clock. We've got a lot to get through before we get to Roundtable. So the album, Resistance is Futile. I mean, it's a brilliantly ambiguous, fantastically ambiguous title for a start. I imagine that's part of the reason behind it. It could be, I mean, it's either, you know, sort of fantastic, aggressively confident, or it's almost knowingly resigned, really.
That is the beauty of the title.
Yeah.
There's the layered options of it, you know. And I like to think it's a bit of both, really. Yeah. It is so melodic that you hope that you kind of fall into it after a while, and there is that sense of slight resignation.
There was a piece I read somewhere which said, before making this record, and I think the quote is, you were in a funny place, but I've always thought, out of all the bands that I've known and followed over the years, that the Manic Street Preachers, with one or two exceptions, the Manic Street Preachers would be the band who always had a plan. But for a while, did you not have a plan?
I don't think we did.
No.
I didn't. I usually have a lot of plans.
It's getting harder to formulate plans because everything is just much more uncertain now. So kind of like you tend to let the songs that you've written guide you. And if you realise this is, I think, you know, we try to analyse the songs that we'd already done when we got to about halfway through the record and see if there was something there amongst the songs that connected themselves to each other, you know.
I think after Futurology, you know, I couldn't just go on about Mayakovsky and Mailovich anymore to James and Sean and say we need to interpret the black square painting into sound. It was probably pushing it a little too far.
But do you talk a lot? Do you still? Because I imagine at one point you did nothing else but talk about what you wanted the band to be and where you were going to go. Do you still have those conversations, or as you're writing, do the songs lead you somewhere?
I think we talk about the song as it arises. I think, you know, and
you don't have a concept before a record.
No, it's getting harder. That might happen again. And sometimes I think perhaps you needed like an overarching concept to drive you in that direction.
Yes.
You know, and then you discover things along the way. But we've done a lot as a band, you know. It's kind of like, and like it's kind of, you've got to believe in it yourself. But before even an audience can believe that you've created this big kind of like, you know, artifice of like, you know, of a concept. So like, you know, we'll just see.
Yeah. Futurology was high concept, you know. It was the idea of European art movements. It did try and sound European. We went to Hansa. Well, Jim and Sean didn't. I didn't manage to get out.
No, you didn't then.
So all those things definitely, you know, that was a really kind of well thought out process. Certainly in my head, but I do get the impression sometimes that. Yeah.
Did you feel then you needed a bit more room to manoeuvre with this record? Because it does go to a lot of different places, and I think it's all, you know, in this case, all the better for it, because it's not a reaction to the last record, but it's a different record.
Yeah, I think one of the best reviews sort of said it's like a collection of singles, like a singles album, but have never been released before. So we did try to maximise the potential of every song in every sort of direction we could. Yeah. I think, you know, rather than try and bind them together with some overarching theory, it was just trying to make every single bit of it as good as we could.
I suppose there is only a point where you just can't herd sheep into something which makes.
I mean, sometimes
Jim does try.
Sometimes something falls in your lap, like the Holy Bible.
Yeah.
Obviously, I don't know if you'd call it a concept, but there's a theme. You know, and that just can't happen with every record.
No.
It just can't.
In the meantime, this all starts falling together. There's a sense of purpose which arrives, I think, when you arrive back, Sean, from one of the second time you've been on one of these amazing, massive charity treks, and the last one was where? Peru, was it?
It was in Peru, yeah. James didn't come along. He was a bit scared of the altitude. He didn't want to take the medicine. So I went off on my own and, slept in a tent at 15,000 feet in the rain, and enjoyed every moment of it.
On your own. You're on your own.
Not to listen to us wittering on about rubbish.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, but after that, though, after doing that, I bet being in a band's a doddle, isn't it, when you get back?
It was brilliant.
There's no moaning about, you know, the shower's not right in the venue.
I didn't.
How dare you? We never use showers in venues ever.
Exactly. I just wanted to finish off the album. You know, sort of set the ball rolling. Came back and just, you know, sort of put my head down and just got on with it. You know, drawing on the experience of the last 12 albums. So
the last track we did before Sean went, he just did 3 takes on Liverpool Revisited, which I thought were amazing. I just said, I'll give it a go. It's just a demo. Yeah. And, you know, it was done.
Done. I'm off.
Yeah. Backpack on. Yeah. Off to sunny Peru.
I just want to go back to Patagonia because it's all they fed us there was trout and lamb, which are my 2 favourite foods in the world. So,
really?
So if it's another trek to Patagonia going, I'll go back there.
So you got to be careful what you wish for.
Lamb and trout.
We'll play a track from the new Manics record and talk more about 2 or 3 lead tracks on this record, which I think are really important. But and this might be one of them. This is from the Manic Street Preachers' new record, Resistance is Futile, and this is Vivian. Play that for Luke Muse. He says, listening to the Manics on 6 Music. My goodness, Vivian sounds really lovely, melodic and totally Manics. Very much looking forward to listening to the new album tomorrow and seeing them in Cardiff next month. Vivian from the new Manics album. You'll be able to explain better than I am who the Vivian is in this song. She was a nanny in Chicago, but a photographer, but no one knew.
Yeah, Vivian May, and it's just if anyone wants to watch the film Finding Vivian May, it explains it a lot better than me.
Right,
but I watched it and I was just so inspired. The idea that something that you think is totally lost, i.e. all these photographs which she never developed, so only the negatives existed, were found in a lot which was up for sale. You know, because no one knew what they were buying. Yeah. And they turn out to be some of the greatest bits of street photography ever taken. You know,
in some ways this is a classic Manic Street Preachers trait, though, isn't it? A lyrical type, finding an inspirational figure, or finding someone, particularly a storyteller, and then holding their work up to the light.
Yeah, we've always thought there's much more interesting things than ourselves. You know, that stuff out there, be it you know, Let Robeson Sing or Kevin Carter, it goes right into our DNA. The idea that our lives have been illuminated by stuff that we'd like to pass on.
Are you still finding heroes? Do you still find people? Occasionally, if you're reading something, and then you spend the next, 7 hours on the internet finding out about a person who can still
it still happens. I think
it does.
Yeah, I mean, kind of like just discovered like a poet called T.E. Nicholas, which is just find amazingly inspirational. That it happens around about 3-4 times a year, where you just think you found something new, and even though it's been there gathering dust for a while, you convince yourself that you're the only person in the world that's into it.
Yeah.
And that's like being the old indie snob, it's that excitement kind of thing.
Yeah, very much. And then are you quick to share it with the rest of the band and go, here you go? Or...
I think the last thing I really tried to kind of like force on Wire and Sean was kind of Roy Buchanan's, the guitarist, the American guitarist, and I was trying to force upon them a track called "The Messiah Will Come Again."
Right.
And I didn't get any positive feedback at all.
No.
White Hills, he's always trying to force on us. As well.
Yeah, I do like White Hills a lot. So, but, no feedback, Steve. Nothing.
No. I mean, I've been trying to not force them because they quite like it, but Sunflower Bean.
Oh, really?
Because I just adore that record so much.
Because why? Because it's a weird album, because it's quite lush in places and almost Fleetwood Mac, but then there's a glam rock side to it.
There is, yeah, and I just, as a band, you don't see people who look that cool anymore.
No.
As a young kid, where I think, they look great.
Yeah.
I'd like to be in their band.
Yeah.
Which that visual side I've always found really important. And the lyrics are really good. 22, I think, is an amazing lyric.
Yeah. On this record, would you say on this record there are times where you sound a bit embattled, not defeated, but embattled and aware of, where you've come from, what you've achieved?
Yeah.
And how frustratingly some things that are left unachieved.
I think if you lifted my head and my body over the last 30 years, you'd probably feel the same. The constant nagging, of just stuff twirling around in my mind. And but also it's that idea of the importance of music as the centerpiece of culture not feeling like it is anymore. So it's not particularly just about us.
No.
It's just about the joy of when we were young of feeling something was so culturally important, and maybe a younger generation not having the ability to have that. Just feel it's not like a nostalgic thing. It's actually it's a shame.
Yeah, I mean, I'm writing some notes. I scribbled down it. There's some history in it. It's not less nostalgic. It's more about the history. It's about what it was.
Yeah, it's more reportage.
And also with that feeling of loss, which is not. It's hard to explain, but it almost suggests the things. Sometimes we leave the wrong things behind.
Yes,
I think.
Yeah, no, you do, and. Once it's gone, it feels like it's never coming back now. Whereas I think probably in the past it always felt like something had come back. Certainly did in my mind anyway.
Well, I'd have to say, if anyone's going to bring it back, there's two things on this record, right? Some proper middle eights.
Oh yes,
that was one of my that was one of my mission statements. I wanted to write more middle eights on this record. Yes.
Yeah, well, you've done that.
Yes, I think 7 of the songs have middle eights. I think.
Yeah, please. And are you really happy when you finish one and go, oh yes?
I think there's that really silly inadequacy you have when any of us are writing music, that you only ever really think a song is a proper song when it's got a middle eight, which is not true. It's not true. I mean, we did win the Ivor Novello for the best contemporary song for Design for Life, and that doesn't have a middle eight.
No.
But there's a strange satisfaction by writing one.
Because there's just some proper serious guitaring on this record. Just moments where I just imagine you step back, lads, guitarist coming through. Know what this needs.
These two were taking the mick out of me because you just play Vivian, and there's in the middle eight and there's a little bit of clipped kind of muso strat, and he was like, "Oh wow, you sound like the session guitarist from Suzanne Vega, circa 1986." I was thinking, it's a bit more Steely Dan, but there you go.
I mean, there's I've read in previous interviews, that some of the songs do allude back to some of the things that you've done before, but then again, there are things which you've pulled off this time which you probably haven't done before. You've done them in various shades before, but something like Dylan and Caitlin is, I mean, that's just a great record. And Catherine A.D.'s on that record singing with you, and she's got a very fine voice. But that, you know, that's a really, you know, it's a great song about, it's got the themes in it, extreme love and extreme hate. It all fits, but just the sound of it is different.
Yeah, and when I wrote the lyric initially, it was totally designed as a duet. You know, it was written, which is, you know, I did write it outside myself a bit more character-based, which is not necessarily my forte.
Right.
And, you know, Sean went really kind of Ocean Rain, Pete DeFreitas, drums on it, you know. Yeah. What's the things you use, not sticks?
Hot rods, was it?
Yeah. Hot rods came out again.
Yeah.
And Jim's, you know, it's the Kiki D Elton John fascination finally came through.
One of my first loves, Kiki D, and kind of in dungarees in that video. No, I mean, kind of, it was a hard song to write musically because such two distinct voices in it, and there is like a sense of drama in there, and it feels like quite in a kind of almost like a co-abusive kind of dialogue going on in the song, you know, tinged with sadness and melancholia. So it took quite a long time to write, but inevitably, invariably, you know, the answer was quite simple. There's only about 6 chords in that song.
I don't want to spoil the plot lines for you, but there's a song called Broken Algorithms, which has got where you deliver the line and the public will decide. Never has that line been laced with such scepticism, I think, when you listen to it, how it's phrased. And also on the Left Behind, right at the very end, here's the line: I believed in a higher truth, believed in it more than you. The Manics album Resistance is Futile is out tomorrow. This is one of those, was it all really worth it songs? I think sequels of Forgotten Wars.
Yes. Which started off as a James lyric, and I sort of embellished.
Yeah, no, he checked out a lot of my lines and came through with some better lines. But kind of started out as a demo when we didn't have a studio. So kind of we had to go down this little studio in Cardiff Bay and just do a kind of quite rudimentary little demo of it. And it just felt like we just needed that slightly early Manics-esque kind of thing that could have been on Generation Terrorists, a bit more accomplished. Just kind of felt as if we needed to talk about how intractable everything is, absolutely everything. I would just seem everything is dramatised these days, whether it be the news, whether it be opinion. Just felt like we needed that song.
I just love the drums on this.
Yeah, it is.
It's got that Pearl Jam crunch, the rear view mirror Pearl Jam crunch, I like to call it. Sean probably.
I was thinking more Phil Collins. But
well, it's got 3 different.
Thompson.
Yeah.
No, more Phil. It's got 3 different time signatures in it.
Yeah.
Three different keys in it. So yes, we're approaching Musadom with that one.
All in just over 4 minutes, and it sounds like this. Manic Street Preachers, stay with us. The Manics are our guests for tonight's edition of Roundtable. After this, from the album Resistance is Futile, this is Sequels of Forgotten Wars. Manic Street Preachers, Sequels of Forgotten Wars from the new album. We'll dedicate that to Major Tom Conn, who's just tweeted to say, getting misty-eyed here. Can you please say thank you to the Manics for popping my live music cherry? I was 15 and wore an army surplus shirt. They opened with Motown Junk. I didn't get my hearing back for a week. And there's the ticket. Look at that.
Oh, cool. Where was it? Let's have a look where it was. The Anson Rooms in Bristol.
Yeah.
As a ropey old gig as well.
It was a sloping stage.
Yeah.
A sloping stage.
Yeah, kind of, and it was shiny and sloping.
I kept falling over.
Well, like a non-league ground.
Yeah. Grimsby, didn't they have a big slope?
Barnet did, didn't
Yeah,
it?
Barnet.
So it was like
So when I do a jump, you'd jump on one place and then you'd land and it'd be a lot deeper and I'd fall over.
Thank you very much. If you'd like to get in touch, 64046. The Round's table guest this week on the Manic Street Preachers.
This is BBC Radio 6.
Bradfield, Nicky, Sean Moore for the Manic Street Preachers. Just before we review that, just so people have a kind of idea of your musical taste along the line, what are you listening to at the moment, James? Old or new? Doesn't matter.
Old or new, I kind of think... during the recording of the record, it was a track by Anna Meredith.
Oh, really?
Called Nautilus, which I just absolutely just think is one of the best things I've heard for years,
Right.
kind of thing.
Right.
And kind of like, obviously, War on Drugs still have a bit of a big kind of like a Midwest driving experience kind of like effect on me.
What is that? We reviewed a War on Drugs track, and I can't remember which one it is, but it's the one that starts like they're doing Bob Dylan, and then they turn halfway through into Bruce Springsteen. Or is it the other way around? They start doing Bruce, then they become Bob.
That's all they saw.
I was going to say that's every album.
Well, with a bit of Dire Straits chucked in.
We have some Anna Meredith coming up in this hour of the programme. Nicky, what are you listening to?
Like I said, Sunflower Bean, absolutely adore. St. Vincent album, I really, really loved. High Concept, Wolf Alice, Michael Kinuwaka, I absolutely loved.
Yeah. Some Wolf Alice. You like Wolf Alice?
Yes, they did a tour with us. They were one of the best
Yeah.
support bands we've ever had. They just went out every night and absolutely, squared up and gave it back, which is not easy to do without a crowd sometimes.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I imagine, it's hard. If you get to any size venue where you're playing, it's always a bit harder, isn't
But
it?
they
did it.
Oh, crowd loved it.
Yeah.
They did.
Brilliant. Shame. I got into the Shame album as well quite a lot. I did enjoy that.
Yeah, that's a good record. Yeah, I like that. Sean?
Hookworms. I like their album. I just like the story of their, studio flooding and having to rebuild, which is a coincidence. Cause,
music.
I'm trying to think what else. Human League.
Warm Digits, you like?
Yeah, Warm Digits, Human League. First 3 albums, I've gone back to those.
Have you?
Yeah, I used to have Dare on cassette. I'm trying to think what else. Once in Future Band, like that sort of Sam Fran prog.
Right.
Sort of into that. So,
right. So it's still a very diverse range of music.
Basically, we got nothing in common.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Griff Reese, though, what does this bring you together? James, what did you did you like this particular Griff?
Yes,
Reese
I did like it a lot, and just kind of just made me really, really excited to to get the album. Made me feel like I was like sat in the living room with my parents in 1977 kind of thing. It just kind of like felt there was a big curtain was going to kind of like just kind of draw as he kind of finished, with some kind of variety performance, but just beautiful. It was just gorgeous, and Les had a touch of Glenn Campbell about it. Just kind of, and he was actually really understated vocal from him, was just kind of just pitched it just right. I loved it. Thought it was gorgeous.
Nicky.
Yeah, I love him. The lyrics are really interesting. I think he's talking about the album being about building towers to heaven and it all going wrong,
right,
and turning into hell. I think he says the word totalitarian in that song, which fair dinkum, it's not easy to get into a song.
No,
I've tried. And it really does have that beautiful echo of Galveston, and like I said, it just reminds me of playing Glenn Campbell's greatest hits with my mum and dad and Neil Diamond. And I'm looking forward to the record.
It's really interesting because he really sings on this record. I think that's the thing. Really properly sings.
I think the National Orchestra of Wales have really allowed him to go a bit Scott Walker by all accounts.
Yeah, Sean.
Well, I thought it was more Lee Hazelwood, to be honest. And the vocal I thought was sort of very reminiscent of Leonard Cohen and sort of that baritone, lush, warm sort of sound. So, I mean, I loved American Interior. Yeah. And, it's just another step on from there.
Now, usually we would give these marks out of 10. Do you fancy doing that? Are you happy all right there? All right?
Go on.
Mark out of 10 for Griff Reese.
8 3/4.
I'm rounding that up. My maths isn't that good.
9 then.
9, Nicky.
Definitely an 8 that could turn into a 10 with more listens.
Sean.
And an 8 for me as well, seeing that's the only one I've listened to off that album. So.
Okay. This is by Tom Misch featuring De La Soul. Next, our second track for this week, and it's called It Runs Through Me. Tom Misch featuring De La Soul, It Runs Through Me. It says, I'm a massive old school hip hop head, so this collaboration just felt really good. It's the icing on the cake for the album. It Runs Through Me, Tom Misch featuring De La Soul, Nicky Wire.
I like the bass, I really like. Yeah. I like the bass. I think the De La Soul bit really is quite magical. Unfortunately, I think the lyrics in the De La Soul bit kind of show up the lyrics in the rest of the song. Right. Because the De La Soul ones are really clever and brilliant and great rhymes, and the other ones leave me a tad cold. But I don't find it offensive or anything. No, I don't really know anything about it, so coming to it cold. It's a bit like when Duff McKagan played on one of our records, and I realised his bass showed up how bad my bass was.
Right. Never darken our door again with your fancy professional bass playing style. Sean.
Well,
you can be honest.
It's like the title is sort of it running through me as well. And he doesn't want you to take it away from him. Well, he can keep it, because for me, he's supposed to be a jazz guitarist, and there wasn't a lot of evidence of that. You know, sort of a 4-bar loop that just kept on going and over again. And like again, you know, Nick said, the De La Soul rap was probably the best part of the song. You know, he's only 23 years of age, so he probably hasn't got that much life experience. But you know, that's pretty much, you know, it's jazz cafe. It doesn't do anything for me at all.
You see, there speaks a man who's walked hundreds of miles a day in Peru as an experienced man.
Well, Sean is a jazz head from his trumpet days, you know, and Charlie Parker and everything. So,
were you partly brought up through a bit of jazz?
It was through brass band, really, and then that sort of grew then into sort of
played
local
a bit in Gwent Jazz Youth Orchestra, didn't he?
And that sort of grew from there. So that was, you know, my love of sort of Charlie Parker and Miles Davis, and then you just go on that discovery then through Miles Davis, really.
What age were you listening to Miles Davis then?
15, 16.
yeah.
That's quite a challenge in a way, I would have thought.
I mean, my
It was a
favourite
challenge for me.
I mean, my favourite era was, you know, late 50s.
Yeah.
So it'd be, you know, sort of, you know, very young Herbie Hancock was playing keyboards.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. So.
Yeah.
Sean once borrowed a lot of jazz records off my dad, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? What, right. So your dad was a...
Yeah, he
was
liked
a
Benny
jazz-
Goodman, didn't he?
Yeah, clarinet.
He loved-
Right.
Yeah.
So slightly more, not trad, but old school.
Yeah.
In a way. Yeah.
I really like Troika, a jazz band you got me into from Manchester. I kind of like modern jazz.
Yeah. James, Tom Misch.
Kind of, when the track started, I wasn't so into it. I did grow into it, and I kept thinking, you should get Donald Fagen to produce him. It'd be really good. Yeah. There's a little tiny bit of Steely Dan in the background there, kind of thing. By the end of the track, once the rap came in and there was a little keyboard part came in, I just thought, yeah, you could really go somewhere. But it took me a while to get there.
Marks out of 10, Nicky Wyatt.
Yeah, a kind 6 that could go into a 7.
Sean.
I'll give it 4 for the rap.
And James?
No, I'm going to give it a 7 because I think if he gets a producer that challenges him, he could come some really good stuff.
We have something new from Anna Meredith coming up after this little plug for something. Anna Meredith at Callion. It's out now. It's available via the Adult Swim Singles series, which previously is released. Tracks by Run the Jewels, Flying Lotus, Unknown Mortal Orchestra, and Sir Mac DeMarco, amongst others. Anna Meredith plays London South Bank Centre on April the 28th. And whose turn is it to start? Sean, off you go.
Yeah, I really liked it. It reminded me a lot of the Orb UFO album, particularly a track called Close Encounters.
Right.
Yeah, it sort of seems like it should be a soundtrack to, you know, sort of, I don't know, Stranger Things or some other sci-fi based 80s
yes.
you know,
yeah,
sort of program. It's also reminded me a bit of the Tron soundtrack the Daft Punk did a little while back.
Yeah.
So, you know, a bit of Philip Glass in there maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, I love Noteless like James did. I thought, you know, that's quite aggressive. This is, you know, a lot sort of mellower than more sort of trance like.
As a fan, James, happy with that?
I mean, kind of like, I did have a bit of a obsession with the track Nautilus, which is off the album Varmints. Yeah. And it was strange because I like some of the other stuff on Varmints, the album, but Nautilus was the standout track for me. And like Sean, there's an aggression to that track. And I think she has a real talent for turning darkness into light. It really does. And I do have a problem with music. I find it hard to listen to records that don't have much of a lyrical narrative to it. So when I've got to listen to music like this, it needs to just hook me in naturally. And she does. I kind of love this track, and the first time I listened to it, I didn't love it so much. The second time I'm listening to it, I do. I am beginning to love it already. I just think there's something about her which, like, I'm just going to keep following her, in terms of whenever she puts music out.
Yeah.
But I just like the way she kind of like she sets you up and then she flips the rhythm, and you can't quite tell whether, like I said, she seems to turn darkness into light. There's a confusion there, which I love.
Yeah.
But I just think she's great. I do.
As opposed to turning lightness into dark.
He's had enough of that from me.
I wasn't looking at you. Actually, I was. Anna Meredith, Nicky, why?
I mean, 20 years ago, I would have despised that, and I would have just said to James, it's just the sort of music you listen to because you live in London. I would have gone on a massive rant. What's the point without any words? Which I still struggle with, but I can definitely see the attraction to it.
Yeah.
And James is desperate for her to remix one of our records, so it's got a 10 out of 10 for me.
Right.
No, it does. It's got echoes of Steve Reich, that kind of repetitive thing. It builds and it builds and it builds and it builds, and I could easily, lose myself in that.
Yeah.
Whereas 20 years ago, I could not have lost myself in anything.
Yeah. I think you're right. That is, it does have that sort of slightly immersive quality. If you can find that point of entry, then you're in, I think.
Yeah. As someone who doesn't do drugs, I could never, like that 20 years back, unless I was on 6 paracetamol a day, I couldn't really get into that kind of music. But now, as someone who's completely ravaged by time, I find it quite easy to slip into a trance-like state.
Marks out of 10. Sean?
7.
James?
8. Excited about the album.
Nicky?
8 for the music, none for the lyrics.
There's some lyrics in this. This is Pure Anarchy, and this is by Bad Breeding, and this from their forthcoming EP, which is called Abandonment. This is called Psychic Copper. From Bad Breeding, from outside that one little Indian records, say there's an EP called Abandonment coming out. We have to be reasonably brief on this, otherwise we're going to be really late for news. James, start us off. Psychic Copper, Bad Breeding.
Yeah, reminding me a tiny bit of a red lorry, yellow lorry. I used to like them quite a bit. So I got hooked in there. Just like the guitar break as well.
Yeah, good. Nicky, why?
Yeah, love the guitar solo, love the type. Just the name of the band, Bad Breeding, draws me in straight away. Did a little bit of research. They just seem incredibly committed to their cause, and I always admire bands like that, and I'd like to hear a bit more.
Okay, and Sean?
Anarcho, Conflict, Flux of Pink Indians,
TJs.
Yeah, I couldn't understand any lyrics, but I suppose that's not the point.
Yeah.
But it's nice. Sometimes it's good to hear ugly music.
Yeah.
Because you hear so much beautiful music and you see so many false, beautiful images.
Yeah.
I don't mean ugly in a disparaging way, but something is just attacking you.
It was cohesive in its power structure.
Yes.
It was.
You're entering the world of the Manic Street Preachers. They're our guests for Roundtable. We're back with music to come from Cabbage, Simian Mobile Disco, and something new from Johnny Marr after this news. Official single from his forthcoming solo album, Call the Comets. Johnny Marr and the Tracers. One or two comments about some of the tracks just before the news. Anna Meredith went down tremendously well. Miranda Kitten and Jeff both marking that very highly. And the Bad Breeding track, which I forgot to do marks out of 10 for. Bad Breeding marks out of 10. James?
7.
Yeah.
I gotta give that an 8 for commitment alone.
6 for me.
And high scoring from Jimmy Steakbake, who says it's a right royal mess of a record. I love it. And straight on my bath time playlist, says Jimbo. Johnny Marr, Nicky Wire, your turn to start. Has Johnny Marr, you ever worked with Johnny Marr? I mean, he's been in every other band. Is he not? Do you fail the audition?
He is one of the ultimate guitar heroes.
Yeah.
I loved the first album, The Messenger. I absolutely adored. I thought it really just had a crunch, and this didn't sound like that at all. It's a real statement track. I like what he's been saying about the album, about that idea of, rather than reporting all the terrible stuff going on, the idea of building a new society. That idea of refuge in art is certainly something I get, and this really reminds me echoes of Queen is Dead. The drums especially, and the way it kind of fizzles out in a good way. You heard it this morning on Mr. Keaveney's show, I think it was, and second time I'd liked it even more. And I'd like to read the lyrics a bit better because I couldn't quite get them, but it just doesn't sound like him, in a good way. I think it's just one of those statement things.
And what does it sound like, Sean?
I have to be brutally honest. I just think it sounds like mid-80s goth, sort of a la The Mission or something. Yeah, I mean, it's just a bit guitar-like for me. It's not something that I like. It's a bit House of Love. And just the fact that all the ideas seem to fizzle out in the last minute or so. I wish I could like it more, but I'll just have to wait for the album to come out now.
Yeah. James?
Like why I was a big fan of The Messenger, really liked it. I thought it was a great solo album. It's really strange with this because you get people like Ryan Adams who were trying to play more and more like Johnny Marr on the guitar, but Johnny Marr doesn't seem to want to play like you remember him.
Yeah.
Perhaps that's our problem, because he likes to move on, etc. When I heard it this morning, I wasn't quite sure. I like it a lot more now. I really like the middle section bit where it sounds like Noel's doing a backing vocal. That's my favourite bit of the song. Again, it's done enough for me to want to buy his next solo album. So that's cool,
Yeah.
But I'm almost like nagging him. I just want to hear that shining,
Don't be so old-fashioned.
I want to be that, I want to hear that shining.
You hold us back.
Shining cascading waterfall of arpeggios like he used to do. I still want to hear that from him sometimes.
Yeah. If we ask him nicely enough, he might. You never know, he might. Johnny Marr, The Tracers, gets marks out of 10 from Nicky.
A 7, which could go up to an 8.
Sean.
A 6 that could go down to a 5.
And James.
7 that could go to 8.
All right, that's Johnny Marr, and one more single before we get to our featured album. This from Simeon Mobile Disco. This is called Hey Sister. Wichita Records is from the new album Murmurations, which is released on May the 11th. We're round again to Sean. Your turn to start.
Yeah, I sort of like it. The only thing I don't like is the just the bit at the beginning, the tubular bell sort of DX7 80s sample. I'm very.
Is that a pet hate of yours?
No, it's just I always hated the preset on that anyway. So it's like now that somebody's used it, it's just like I just couldn't believe it. It's very sort of Bananarama. Sort of meets the slits, maybe, with the percussion and everything. I just needs a middle 8, really.
Right.
I think it'd be perfect there.
Well, I know a man who can do you a middle 8.
Exactly.
James.
I really like the start of the song, actually, because now it reminded me of like a modern take of like music from a Japanese play. They're old-fashioned, like Japanese kind of plays, kind of thing. I kind of like that. And yeah, it was more Fun Boy 3 than Bananarama for me. The vocals, I actually really love the sound of the, of the vocals, the choir, whatever. I just thought it was cool. I haven't got much to say about that except for I'd always turn that up when it came on the radio. I just really liked it.
Do you people, just before we get to you, Nicky, do people send you music at any point? Do people actually, apart from new bands trying to get on tour with you and stuff, I suppose?
Yes, they still do, and they ask for advice, and it's always quite awkward because any advice that we give people is just going to be outdated.
Yeah.
and also
it's sadly true though to a certain extent, isn't it?
It is, yeah. So it just. And also, we were such bitter, inward-looking people at the start that I don't want anybody to be like us, like we were when we were 18.
But some of the things ring true, though. I alluded to this earlier on, but just talking about music, I always think with bands, can I just talk a bit more about it? And what inspires you, and have the conversations.
I think we were lucky starting because we would sit down with journalists, and it'd be a 10-day trip. Just talking to a journalist, and at the end of it, you would come to a conclusion and a theory that everything worked. And you've got to know people. As Jim said, every band drunk a lot more in those days. In fact, the journalists drunk. There were some serious drinkers in those enemy days.
Steve,
I'm not looking at you.
To be fair, I wasn't the worst.
No, that's true.
But you're up there.
I
remember you once saying, "Oh God, I haven't got a can in my hand." No, you weren't.
Yeah, I think that was 1991. Yeah.
No, it was just people that could just like talk the talk and just kind of like go to the bar, pay for a round of drinks. It was just very engaging.
Do you know one of the things which when the NME ceased publication in its physical form a few weeks ago, and one or two people phoned me up and I said one of the things about the NME, and I think this is probably true across the board, but certainly the NME had lost its sense of authority.
Yes.
That idea that we're right and we don't care if you think we're right or not because we think we're right.
Yeah.
And I think that's lost in the media, even in some places, because you had to prove to yourself that you were right.
No, it's very true. You know, it might sound a bit elitist, but it's just that idea of saying we will break this band. You know, we love them. You will end up liking them, which is what we felt like at the start. And you know, those endless days of travel and talk, and you know, you end up just talking about music and football and everything, and you know, people understand, they get an insight into your music then. And I think it's hard to get an insight into people's music these days, because all you get is a filtered version through Twitter or Instagram. You know, you don't get that kind of real contact.
Also, the other confusion of like good journalism, music journalism just elevates music sometimes. We'd read about records before we bought them, then we'd manage to get the record through small wonder mail order, and then you go, wow, that's not the record that was described to me in the NME.
Weird, another record in your top 10 albums that, on that list, which I found, was Candy Apple Grey by Husker Du, and that is a classic record. I remember I hadn't heard any of that. I just read the review in Sounds, I think, of all places, and just thought, this sounds astonishing. I'd heard some of their previous work, but I thought, this sounds astonishing, and just that excitement of just from that one review and then taking it home and going, man, they were right.
Was that their first Warner's album?
It was.
Worst production ever, but amazing.
Warehouse is the worst. Candy's a bit better.
Very quickly, Simian Mobile Disco, Nicky.
It's really impressive. It's just an impressive piece of music, all right. Bar the lyrics, which I'm struggling a bit with, a song called Hey Sister. There must be at least 20 other songs called Hey Sister. But you know, that's just me being pedantic. Musically, it's just got that Fun Boy 3 thing, and it's kind of haunting, you know, and it's quite interesting the way they say they were using the choir. Basically, Steve, last time I was on Roundtable was with you. I think it was 2007 with the Mystery Jets playing, I think it was.
Right.
And down in Cardiff University, and I'm pretty sure I just slagged every single thing off. So this time, I love everything.
Give it some marks out of 10 then. Sean?
I'm going to give it a 7.
James?
7.
Nicky?
7 for the music, 4 for the words.
We'll play you some stuff from the Cabbage record. I know it's out there already, but I was interested to see what the Manics thought of this. Cabbage. And their album, which is called Nihilistic Glamour Shots, features this. This is Preach to the Converted. It's Cabbage, and that's from the album Nihilistic Glamour Shots. That was Molotov, Alco Pop. Round the table we go. James?
Yeah, I liked it. Liked them a while back. When they released the EP, can't remember what it was called. And we played with them up in Bingley last summer. They were really cool live. Really cool bunch of guys. Just feels like there's an overarching kind of idea behind the band, which I always buy into. You know, whether it be like Age of Chance, you know, kind of like, you know, or Big Flame, you know, back in the late 80s in the indie scene. Just feel like they got a sense of purpose, and that transfers to the music. I like production as well. It's James Skelly from, you know, Coral, and I got a problem with production and records these days, because it just all sounds like it's come out of the same box, all come out of Pro Tools, and it just feels like the producer's got too much power these days. And it sounds like James has just let the band, you know, play there, and just like, and I kind of think they got somewhere to go. I just like their ambition, and they've got a narrative in their lyrics, which, you know, things like I got the chance to be the kind of resurrector, I got the chance to be the debt collector, you know, that lyric is popping out at you, which is enough for me.
Yeah, Nicky?
Yeah, you know, in a country like Britain, which is where we constantly kind of sold the idea that we should be eating kale, I like the idea that they call cabbage. It just makes it seem much more real. It's much more, you know, it's just that, the lineage of the Fall. That really reminds me of the Modern Dance by Pierre Abou, especially his vocal delivery. I think that's one of their best songs they've done, actually. Really liked it. And the one the Missing Manics title. I bought this album last week just because I loved the cover and the title. You know, I bought it on vinyl last week, and those two songs really stick out. And I always think that bands like this are one track away of a Cruiser's Creek or a Mr. Pharmacist, one song that just takes them over. And I think then it might be there. So all the best to them.
Sure.
Yeah, interesting titles, you know, makes me want to listen a bit more. A bit Dead Kennedys, I thought, in a lot of ways.
Same as that. Jello.
And also, you know, the title Cabbage is one of the first things I learnt in music theory. So, you know, coming from a good place, young, I'm sure they're brilliant, you know, live.
Yeah.
You know, really.
It's just hard to find a place for bands like that. I guess I feel if this had been out in 1982, single of the week.
I think the only criticism, I just wish the guitars were maybe just slightly out of tune. Yeah. And that was it. They just it's just a little
professional.
Too professional.
Welcome to my world.
The Manic Street Preachers have been our guests for the past hour. If you've come in halfway through it, it'll be up online, of course, this week's edition of Roundtable. We don't have to mark the album. The singles provided us with this winner, first record which we played. Could have gone home after that. Griff Reese and Frontier Man is the most popular track of the week, and we'll play that again on tomorrow's show. The Manics are off on tour, and will be joining us, of course. You're coming at the biggest weekend, May the 25th.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
So always to get back to Belfast.
Forward. Yeah, it's a good place for you, Belfast.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
it is.
Right from the start, we've always played there, so it's good to be going
First
back.
place we played there was called the Limelight, the legendary Limelight Club.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Johnny Hero.
Yeah, Johnny Hero came and met us on the corner, and I think David Holmes said he might have been at one of those early gigs.
Really?
And kind of, we were in Belfast when we realised we were number one with Tolerate. We've just always had great gigs there.
Were you?
Yeah.
We were,
Wow. That's a place to celebrate.
Yes.
Isn't it?
It was.
The champagne was flowing into the wire stomach.
You crawled on stage,
I did. It was a bit of a crawl.
The new Manics album is called Resistance is Futile, and we'll finish with a track from it. Thank you very much, boys, for hanging around for the last hour and a half. LP out tomorrow. This is the Manic Street Preachers featuring the Anchoress, and this is Dylan and Caitlin. We're back tomorrow at 4. Take care. Have a good evening, everybody. Cheerio.
Thank you.